welcome to another episode of Gar Borras' Time Machine. Gar, I believe this is going to be episode 12, and we're going back in time today, all the way back to 1966 for the classic TV series Batman, starring Adam West and Bert Ward. Now, just to again give people a little bit more info here, Batman was a TV series that aired on ABC television from January 12th of 66 to March 14th of 68. And the show starred Adam West, as I said, as Batman, and Burt Ward as his faithful trusty Ward and sidekick Robin. The TV series was created and produced by American film TV producer William Dozier, who is also known for producing TV series such as The Green Hornet. The TV show is based, of course, on the DC Comics superhero Batman, who was created by none other than Bob Kane. Now, with all that, let's get into it. I know you're a huge Batman fan, so tell us how you first became a fan of Batman. Were you a Batman fan before the TV show?
Yeah, well, I was a comic book fan way back in the early 60s. I remember my mom we lived in Los Angeles, and my mom's family lived in Georgia, and there were times that as a family we would take the train from Los Angeles to Georgia, because this is way back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I guess flying was considered more dangerous back in those days.
Yeah.
And taking, and it was kind of educational being a kid, taking a train ride clear across the United States. Some of the things that I saw on those train rides, I remember to this day, and they're very powerful things that I saw, that not bad things, very beautiful things, and different parts of the country and stuff like that. But here I am, and this is in the early 60s, and I was old enough to know how to read, but not very good. But good enough to read a comic book, and I had all these, the Batman, the Superman, the Wolverines, all of that stuff, and that was, it was all in magazine form.
Yeah.
I think the only stuff that was going on TV back in those days that was, similar was the Lone Ranger.
Yes. Wow.
Stuff like that, and you know what I mean. So there wasn't really a whole lot of TV shows that had to do with those type of characters and stuff like that.
Now let me ask you, Gar.
Let me get to the point where Batman enters the picture. Then all of a sudden, they come out with this TV show.
Yeah.
And my God, I just latched onto that TV show like you wouldn't believe. I'm sure I was like every other kid at that time. It was extremely popular. I can't describe how popular, especially for me. It was. I remember. Now remember, this is way back in the early 60s, and I remember I was in the backyard and I was playing with matches, and of course, that classic 1960s kid playing with matches, and my parents busted me, and as my punishment, I couldn't watch Batman. And they might as well have taken a knife and stabbed me in the gut. It hurt that bad. That punishment was the perfect punishment for a kid. You know what I mean? Because that punishment was devastating to me, and to the point where I even remember how devastating it was to me. This many years later, I still remember it. It was a huge deal to me to not be able to watch Batman.
Yeah, and I got to ask, Gar, how many weeks was the punishment for? Like, how many weeks did you have to go without seeing it?
I think it was just, I don't remember. It might have been longer than just one episode.
Yeah.
It very well might have been just like, one episode.
Yeah, and I got to tell people, I'm a huge Batman fan myself, and actually what inspired us to do this episode was we were doing another episode earlier. You had mentioned this story, and I thought, wow, to have that as a punishment, like you said, anything else but that. I said, boy, that guy must have really loved Batman. But what I was going to ask you earlier was talking about being a comic book fan before his TV show ever kind of aired. As a kid reading comic books, I'd imagine like visually you were drawn to it because those illustrations in the comic books are just really amazing. But were you like equally, would you say, into the reading the stories, or were you more into just kind of the visual part of the comic book?
At that young of an age, it had to have been both.
Okay, yeah.
It really had to have been because the visual was a big deal. It was very eye-catching, especially for that time.
Eye candy,
we look at it nowadays and with nostalgic glasses on. You know what I mean? But back in those days, there was no nostalgia to it. It was brand new, and it was really, really eye catching. But then as of course that just kind of draws you in. Yeah. But then the actual storylines and everything like that also drew you into the characters and everything like that, and of course, as little kids, you want to be Batman. Of course. and this,
you know what I mean? This TV show.
You're reading this, and you want to be Batman.
It's almost like I remember the first time I saw a TV show, and what's kind of interesting is I'm not born until 1971, so by the time I'm born into the world, I'm seeing what has been off air for a while now. It's in reruns, but it's kind of interesting because I'm seeing it from that perspective. And I think I shared this with you that as a Batman fan, that is my reference point for Batman, that classic TV show. And it's kind of funny because I was reading one complaint a lot of people had with the TV show that had a complaint about it was it's a little too campy. Batman's a little too. They didn't like the fact that Batman on a TV show was a little more friendly wasn't as dark as he was in the comic book. And so because of that, once the TV show came off the air, they made Batman a little more dark again in the comic books. But I'll tell you, that was my reference point, and because of that, that was my Batman, if you know what I mean. I mean, when I did see some of the later movies like The Dark Knight, I thought, even like when you see something like Superman versus Batman, I'm like, oh my God, Superman and Batman, they're fighting. Batman's supposed to be friendly, and that's because, again, Adam West was the first Batman I ever saw, probably like you, and so that is a lot of what I base, and that TV show to me is like, it's almost like the comic pages of the comic book brought to life, if you know what I mean, because it's going basically from the comic book to the TV screen, and there's a lot you can do visually that you can't do in a comic book.
Well, there was so much to it. There was when they would get into fights, there would be the pow.
That's exactly what I mean. Bringing it to life. Yeah.
And all the captions in the bubbles and all that kind of stuff with the different hit sounds, and they would get all crazy with just Kazam!
Yeah, I remember as a young boy watching that.
And it was so neat.
Yeah.
The way they did it, it was perfect. It was heavily influenced by the 60s.
Yeah.
The time period, the 60s, the hippies, the modern style of dress, which we look at now, also with nostalgia. But, there was, during that whole decade, it had its influence on the show, and doing it as a campy.
Yeah. That's what I liked about it.
That. Yeah. It was perfect for the time.
And perfect for TV, because again, even back in the 60s, I don't think if you're going to bring someone to, a TV screen, I don't think people want to see a mean Batman or, they want something that's kind of family friendly. And that's what it was. And I was reading it was mostly targeted like towards a teenage audience, but although it was much more than just teenagers checking out the show. And I was reading for its time, like Batman at that time probably was the biggest kind of craze since Beatlemania that anything had really seen up until that point. I mean, all of a sudden, once this Batman show hit, they had T-shirts, they had posters, they had records, which we're going to get into a little later. I mean,
Batman dolls.
Yeah, all of that, and like you said, it's now nostalgia, but it was all new back then.
Yes, and it's just so. It was so popular that a whole slew of highly regarded actors and actresses were just, I want a part on that show. I want to be on that show. Because like all of these different people that played villains were all very highly regarded actors and actresses. And it's just like, it's a literal parade of who's who playing the villains. It was just like one of those coveted shows for people to that really wanted to be on that show. And I think it kind of started that trend.
Yeah, because
of people wanting to be guest actors on a particular show.
Yeah, because even it's interesting to read up like on who was up for the roles. Like Adam West was not the original choice for Batman. He was up against Lyle Wagner, of all people, who many people know like from the Carol Burnett show. But I mean, just imagine Batman as Lyle Wagner. I don't know. I think the right guy got the job.
Hands down, the right guy got the job.
Yeah, and Adam West is interesting to talk about because he was like he'd been acting since the 50s, and this was like his breakout role. This is the thing he became known for. I mean, and he even in the early 50s, he had appeared in films like with the Three Stooges and and he did a lot of westerns back then before he was ever Batman. But this is the thing he remembered, and then because of his popularity from Batman, once the show went off air, I was reading, he was offered the part to play James Bond in the film Diamonds Are Forever, but he turned it down because he felt he was the wrong guy, because he felt whoever played the role of James Bond should be, a British actor. And I mean, just think about that for a minute, because the more I think about it, I could see him as James Bond.
Yeah, but then also, it just kind of gives you a better idea of the mindset of the actor when they turn down a role.
Yeah.
Because they don't feel that they're right for the role.
Yeah.
And most actors won't turn down something like that.
Yeah. I don't think he had any idea what that could have maybe done. I mean, it could have taken his career in a whole new direction. We just will never know. And one of the things we were talking about, we recently posted just yesterday. The show went up that we did about our favorite TV things. That's another thing you and I were talking about in the past, that one of the things I think it really takes to have a successful kind of popular show is a great theme song, and Batman is no exception to that rule. And so
so simple, but yet so effective.
Yeah, so I got some information here regarding the theme song, and some of the stuff I'm just finding out for the first time, and I was amazed, and we're going to get into it. Now, the TV show theme song was written and composed by this guy, Neil Hefti, who is an American trumpeter and composer who not only wrote the Batman theme, but also wrote music for the Odd Couple movie. And that's the original movie with Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. The Batman theme song was covered. Now, this is what I just kind of was interested to discover, by none other than the British rock group The Who, and another like 60s group known as Jan and Dean. The Batman theme itself was based on a guitar riff that sounds like surf music or music that you might hear in a spy film. The song was based on a 12-bar blues progression using only 3 chords.
It was so simple because, when people think about theme songs,
Yeah.
You think more like John Sebastian, welcome back.
Yeah, that's
that kind of a thing. But, all they say is Batman.
And
Batman.
Yeah.
It's so simple.
And I think that's why it worked, because I remember as a kid, it's interesting, you were also talking about like how during the fight scenes, Batman and Robin, they'd be fighting the villains or whatever, and you'd see like pow, wham. And I remember like during those fight scenes, like I'd be putting my fist in the air, act like I was fighting too, and I'd say a word like pow, wham. And also every episode that started, that theme song came on, Batman. I get so into it, like, and even at the end of each show where they would come on and you'd hear them say, voiceover, be sure to tune in, same bat channel, same bat time. I'd start saying the words as it's coming, over the screen.
Well, they really hit on something when they came out with that show. And it's crazy because it only lasted 3 years.
Yeah. And here's the amazing thing that people may not realize. You may look at it and you may think, okay, that was kind of a campy looking show. And maybe that's why it was taken off the show. Maybe people didn't like it. But no, actually, believe it or not, when the show was canceled, it was very popular. And the reason it was pulled off the air by ABC was because of the high production cost. It's amazing. I read more and more how shows get canceled just because it's too costly for a network or a production company to do it. And in fact, they and that's so true that even during the Batman series, I was reading that they use many of the same sets on the Batman set, like for other shows like Lost in Space and Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. They would use the same sets that they were using in Batman, just as a means to save cost.
Also shows that I used to watch back in those days too. Lost in Space was a very popular show.
Yeah. And again, it kind of had that campy feel like Batman had, but I think that's what worked for those shows, because as campy as it is, I never get tired of watching those.
Well, it's a snapshot in time now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You basically, it's just, you're looking at it, and it really encompasses that whole, I guess what you would call back in those days, it was a kind of a social transition from the 1950s beatniks to the 1960s hippies. And then, but what also became popular during the 1960s was this whole mod thing. The whole fashion kind of, I guess, if you're familiar with, there was a really super popular model back in the 1960s, and her name was Twiggy.
Okay.
Yeah. And she encompassed the whole mod look.
Okay.
From that time period, it was kind of a fashion thing, and it started a whole movement of people adopting that mod look, and Batman kind of encompasses much more of like that mod vibe.
Yeah.
To the show. Than it did as far as like a hippie, kind of thing. They didn't start really introducing like the hippie references and the catchphrases that were popular with the hippies until like the third season. Then they started incorporating that. But the first two seasons were much more in the mod era.
Yeah, and I was reading too that, of course, Gotham City is supposed to be based on, it's a fictional city, obviously, based on Manhattan, New York. But it's kind of interesting. Again, they came up with their own little fictional city, and it was so believable. You really, I know as a kid, I used to think there was such a place as Gotham City. Of course, you go and look on the map, and you realize, no, it's just a little town they made up, But again, it was...
I wonder why nobody ever just decided to call, hey, let's name our town Gotham.
Yeah,
Nobody ever really decided to do... I would think that somebody would do something like that, especially after all these years.
Oh, yeah, and again, talking about the music for a minute, the theme song, it kind of amazed me. And doing research for this episode, I learned so much about this I did not even previously know. For example, I'm a huge fan of a band, The Who, and I'm like, how the hell is it that I never knew that they covered the Batman theme? But then it's there for me to discover, and anyone else who wants to go discover it on YouTube. And then, like I said, it was also covered by this other 60s group called Jan and Dean. They each do a fairly decent kind of...
Jan and Dean were really, really popular back in the 60s.
Yeah. And again, like I said, the Batman TV series was known for being really campy, but the stories were written, as I said, and aimed and targeted mostly for a teenage audience. But the interesting thing about the TV series here we're talking about is that they were finding more and more, it was not just teenagers that were tuning in to see Batman each week. It was like families, mom and dad and grandma and grandpa were sitting down, and everybody was watching the Batman show back then. And so, like you said, that the TV series ran for 3 years, and it features a total of 120 episodes for 3 seasons. And like I said, now when ABC decided to cancel the show, it was due to high production costs. And like a week later, because the show was so popular, NBC was originally going to pick it up. But then when they found out that all the sets had been destroyed, they're like, oh, you know what? We're not gonna pick it up then after all, because we don't want to invest all that money into creating new sets. But I think if this was to be taking place today, I think maybe NBC would say, yeah, sure, we got the money, and we can see that the ratings are good. Maybe, yeah, okay, we'll make it better than what it was before. So who knows?
Well, I just think that the 1960s was the perfect time, because if they did something like that nowadays, it would just be, heavily reliant on CGI and, and special effects, and to me, that would, it would just completely change the whole vibe to everything, instead of it being a campy thing, which was what really made the show popular. Back in the 60s. I don't know. It would be really hard. It just would be a completely different ambiance to the show. It wouldn't have any campiness to it whatsoever if it was done nowadays.
Yeah, I'm a huge...
And that's such an important part as to why the original TV show was so popular.
Yeah, and I'm a huge comic book fan, period. I'm a huge Batman fan, but I'll tell you, I think what made the TV show work, too, is it's a lot more than even what you see in the animated versions of Batman, where a lot of it is just these superheroes kind of coming together. I love the fact that it's more than just Batman and Robin. You got them up against all these classic villains. You got other people kind of intertwined in the stories, like the police commissioner, the police chief. And so I think that makes the show that much better, because it's also bringing new people into kind of a storyline,
Well, I think it's one of those kind of almost groundbreaking where actresses were getting star-billing villain roles, which is very unusual for women because women during that time were the housewife at home, in the kitchen, doing, the domestic role of the woman during that time. And here's Julie Newmar creating this
sexy
female villain character in the show, and it's kind of a first of its kind. And and a lot of people don't even look at it that way because I think the fact that women were never portrayed in TV shows and movies like that before, but I think it's one of those things. It's a groundbreaking thing that just people never really paid attention to, but it was true. It was a groundbreaking thing for her to have a character like that and have it become just as popular as all of these other villains that are on the show. The Riddler,
the Joker, the Penguin,
the Joker, and Catwoman was like
right up there,
with all of those other male villains.
And I agree, was groundbreaking to have a character like that at the time. And I think what made it, these days you see more and more female, even comic book, characters. You see stuff like Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, but for that time, you're right, it was groundbreaking. And I think what made a character like Catwoman stand out is exactly that it's this one kind of, supposed to be kind of hot-looking, sexy female villain character, and it's her up against all these other males. I mean, even to the point I could see, like, if we're talking about real world here, I could see maybe the Joker and the Riddler kind of fighting over, I want to be with her, or no, I want to be with her, or she's, whatever. But
I was only 10 or 11 years old at that time.
Yeah.
And I had a major crush on Julie Newmar. I thought she was one of the most beautiful women
no doubt.
in the world.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt. And, another thing, doing research on this, I'm just amazed, like back in the day, the things that some of these TV shows had to worry about. For example, there's this thing called the National Safety Council, and they wanted to know why the Batmobile did not originally feature any seatbelts in the show. And that's why I sent you like a public service announcement after they got questioned by this National Safety Council. They started doing like these public service announcements with different cast members. There's one I think I sang where Batman is teaching like some school kids on how to cross at the street light and the importance of looking both ways or something like that. And they did these different public service announcements. And so from that point on, they said, okay, we have to go back and we have to put now seatbelts in the actual Batmobile so that when it's on the screen. It looks like Batman is, practicing safety. And then they started doing these public service announcements where Batman would actually say about the importance of putting on your seatbelt. And it became a thing the show got praised for, kind of teaching morals such as car safety and everything. Just amazing,
Well, and there were so many different, characters.
Yeah.
That played villains. I kind of gravitated towards Frank Gorshin. And a lot of people don't really know who he was, back in those days.
Yeah.
But his claim to fame
the Riddler.
was the Riddler. But before he did the Riddler, what he was doing, he was getting a lot of gigs he was an impressionist. He could sound like different people, which is the predecessor to tribute bands.
Yeah. I mean, actually,
you know what I mean? Because the first of doing stuff like that were people that would get up on the Ed Sullivan Show, and they were impressionists, and they would get up and they would do like all of these, and they would sound and they would talk and they would say lines from movies and stuff like that, and that's what Frank Gorshin basically did for a living for most of the time. He used to get bit parts in TV shows and things like that. So he was known as an actor, but he was, back in those days, he was much more known as an impressionist.
Well, this explains something I read. Okay, I read a quote regarding Frank Gorshin, where he's quoted as saying, because of his role as the Riddler, after the popularity of that role, he was able to become a Las Vegas headliner. And what you were talking about, him being a guy that did these impressions, I dare say that he preceded another famous impersonator, Rich. There's this guy, Rich Little. I'm sure you've heard of from back in the 80s, but apparently there's somebody before Rich Little that was doing this. So that's amazing. That's amazing. I did not know that about him. And here's a little trivia I think you're going to appreciate. For 2 of the Batman episodes, he was unable to play the role of the Riddler, and I think it was because he was having some kind of dispute, like financial dispute. Now, do you know who, what legendary TV star from the 60s took his place for those 2 episodes?
One of my favorites.
Yes, and
Gomez from the Addams Family, John Astin.
Yeah, and I did not know this until doing the research on this for this today, and I went and I found a clip, and it's kind of amazing because not that John Astin wasn't good. I thought he did a great role as the Riddler, but here's the thing: when I first seen him on the screen, I'm like, okay, well, the Riddler didn't originally have a mustache, but I guess they look enough alike that people didn't really matter to people, And I think that's a credit to John Astin that people were still able to kind of accept him as the Riddler.
Well, it did work, because both of, I think, both of them, but also including all of the other villains, when they played the villains, they played these villains over the top.
Yeah.
Where the characters were like, they would. It was very similar to what actors and actresses used to do when they were doing stage performances. They would have to talk louder. They would have to use arm movements and very expressive with their bodies and very facial expression. Because when you went to see a play, that's what actors and actresses would do, because they would have to go over the top, because they're trying to reach an audience where they're even trying to reach people in the back of the building.
Yeah.
And so when all of these villains were playing their characters in Batman, they were using the same over-the-top expressions, arm expressions, facial expressions, and all of that stuff. And John Astin, that was a classic part of how he played characters. That was, a classic part of his Gomez character in the Addams Family, over the top.
And see, it's amazing that we watch it now, and you might, and like you said, that's Gomez from Addams Family. But it's amazing that people at that time, when they seen him on the screen, maybe didn't recognize him right away, or it didn't even matter. They just thought, he's a great actor, he can do a part. And another thing, talking about the campiness of the show back in the day, is even just they make a point to where each episode had to kind of have a moral, kind of a point to the story, a teachable lesson, where Batman was even in some of the things they covered were Batman would explain, the importance of doing homework, the importance of eating stuff as simple as eating your vegetables and drinking milk, and that it was good for you. I mean, so simple, but I mean, they got praised for doing stuff like that.
Well, as a kid, if Batman says
exactly
eat your vegetables, what are you gonna do?
I think we talked in another episode about this, that I got a DVD collection of Superman, and back in the day, like they had George Reeves do these like Kellogg's Frosted Flakes commercials in the role of Superman, and they had to have him, they couldn't have like Lois Lane do the commercial with him, because how are you going to explain Superman and Lois Lane are living together?
They don't know each other.
Yeah.
Technically.
But, I mean, they thought of stuff, how they portrayed these characters was very, very important. And now, talking a little bit about Bert Ward, who starred as Batman's loyal, trusted ward and sidekick Robin. Ward is now one of the last remaining stars from a TV show that's still alive. And if you can believe it, he is currently 76 years old. It should be noted that prior to playing the role of Robin, that he was a huge fan of Superman and Superboy comic books. Not necessarily Batman, but I guess he became more of a Batman fan once he took the role.
Well, he's kind of like, that's the only character he ever really did.
Yeah. Because
I don't think that he really did anything after that, and I don't recall him seeing him in anything before that. But all it took was just one character, and he's
well, like you said,
he's got an afterlife that could last for many years after he's passed.
Well, see, here's the thing. Much like what Adam West eventually did. I mean, both these guys are typecast, but Burt Ward's a little interesting that when he got this part, he was only, I was reading, 19 years of age, so very young at the time. And like I was reading, he's done he's much more of an activist, and he's involved in stuff politically, and he's done some minor roles here and there. But a lot of what he's done since is like he's a voiceover for certain animated Batman things. So he's more involved in that type of stuff, and as a result, he's become typecast. But I think what I like about like him and Adam West, rather than complaining about it, they've kind of even Adam West up until he died, they were always showing up at these like comic book conventions, and they really embraced it. Okay, well, if people want to think of us as Batman or Robin, we're going to embrace this, and they were able to make a living on it, ever since.
Well, I have a friend that I've known for quite a few years. His name is Scott Sebring.
Okay.
And he, he's a keyboardist, and there was even a few years that we used to work together.
Yeah.
And he is the biggest Batman fan I have ever met in my entire life. He has, the Batman outfit, and when he dresses up like Batman, he looks just like Adam West.
Wow.
He really does. I mean, and he goes to different, functions. He's even taken pictures with, Adam West.
Wow.
He is just the biggest walking, talking, breathing Batman
enthusiast
fan that you could ever want to meet.
Wow.
And his wife even dresses up like Catwoman.
Wow.
They kind of share the passion for it and everything like that. But that's his whole nostalgia. There's some people that are like Kiss fans.
Yeah.
It's everything.
It's their life.
For Scott, it's Batman.
Wow.
You know, I even think he's got a Batmobile.
Yeah, I wouldn't be. I mean, that wouldn't surprise me based on what you're saying, and it was saying that Bert Ward, he got this nickname where he was known as Sparky, and that was as a result of his energetic personality. That's another thing I loved about the show. I mean, if you remember Robin, every time he'd come on the screen, he'd be like, "Holy Batmobile!" You know, he's so energized, and he'd come up with these like the phrasing he would come up with, and you know, we've been talking about how this show was really campy, but I want people to go on YouTube and kind of check this out. I'm going to post this on our page once the episode posts, but I sent you like an old theatrical theatrical serial of Batman from 1943, I believe it was, Gar, and I remember coming across
I watched it,
and I could not believe how campy that was, and I had trouble actually kind of getting into it because of the fact that, again, my reference point for Batman is Adam West. I thought, this is nothing like that.
Oh my God! Well, they were arriving at scenes where they would have to catch the bad guys in like regular cars.
Yeah. But even the outfits,
and it was just like you know, the fight scenes were very non-superhuman.
Yeah. And I guess
I had to watch that, dude. I watched it from beginning to end. You know, it was a real eye opener because I'm all, you know, especially you know, in my younger years, I was all about black and white stuff, and that's, you know, that one I missed. I was completely unaware. You know, I mean, I go, you know, as a kid, I go back to the Lone Ranger.
Oh yeah.
And you know, stuff like that. You know, which is a long time ago.
Yeah, usually
but that. You know, I don't recall ever coming across that over my years.
Well, I'll tell you how I originally came across it. Like I said, I'm a huge comic book fan and Batman, everything Batman. I love Spider-Man. But anyways, I came across one day actually in a Target store. They had a whole bunch of these DVDs, like it was just being released that day. And at that time, they were releasing a lot of this archival stuff. Now, just thinking that it's Batman, and I'm kind of looking at the cover, and I can't really tell, is it a movie, is it a cartoon? I'm like, well, it's Batman, it's got to be something interesting. And I get it home, and I'm kind of, I'm almost flabbergasted. I'm like, because it's nothing like I'd ever seen. It really doesn't fit my image of Batman. But now the older I get, like you said, I have a appreciation for the fact, okay, if you go back, this is like the very first time kind of Batman was ever really on the screen at all. I mean, this is kind of the first image of Batman. And so if you look at from that perspective, it's kind of interesting to see what Batman and Robin started out as the very first time they created these characters and put them on the screen.
Well, you know, it's really interesting to chronologically look at the development
of these characters.
Batman over the years.
Yeah, from that.
You know, you can use that as like your starting point, and then gradually go through the timeline and watch all of you know, the different you know,
different
how it evolved.
The evolution, that's it. That's the word. Yeah.
Yes, evolution. Yes.
Yeah. And then also just the popularity of Batman. You know, the TV show we've been talking about. It's amazing things that sometimes come up. Like as a result of it, I was reading, and I sent you some of these clips too. But I'd never seen this stuff before, but I was reading up about it, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to see if I can find any of this stuff on YouTube. And again, I'm going to be posting this stuff on our Facebook page so people can see it once the episode posts. But for example, as a result of the popularity of a TV show, Bert Ward had an opportunity to go in the recording studio as a recording artist, and he recorded a couple of songs where he's actually the featured vocalist. And what really amazed, and some of the songs, for example, were called, you can look the stuff up on YouTube, Teenage Bill of Rights and Boy Wonder I Love You. Now, the amazing thing's not only about he got to record these two songs, but they were written and produced by none other than the legendary Frank Zappa.
You know, I could totally totally see Frank Zappa wanting to be involved.
Yeah. And I don't know if you got a chance to hear that. I did send to you, but I can resend it if you didn't get a chance. And then I also sent you another kind of novelty song that became, that they did out of a result of a success of a show where in the character of Batman, Adam West also did one of these novelty songs called Miranda. And it's kind of him kind of talking in a spoken word.
I listened to that.
But it's a trip. It's a trip. Like, I would love if they would release that, like a CD of all this stuff like that they never kind of put out. It'd be so cool, I think.
He can actually sing.
Yeah.
Most actors, when they try to do that stuff, they talk.
Yeah.
Kind of like William Shatner. When he did like some recordings, all he did was he talked, over music and stuff like that, not really carrying a tune. He actually carried the tune in Miranda.
Yeah, and that's another thing people will be posting, so you can check it out, but you can also check it out on, YouTube. And then a couple other things I made note of now. This is kind of interesting. Talking also again about Adam West. On June 9th, 2017, Adam West died at the age of 89 in Los Angeles, California. He died of leukemia, and shortly after learning of Adam West's death, Bert Ward made this comment. In my eyes, there was only one real Batman, and he was Adam West. And he really was the bright knight. Now, that's an important statement because, kind of like what I said, that, Adam West was my Batman, but a lot of people prefer the kind of darker Batman, the Dark Knight. And I think that's kind of a fair, that Batman, that was Batman to him, very much like me. And I love the fact that that Batman was kind of a happy Batman rather than the darker, kind of meaner Batman. And I think it worked for that time. And that is how many people will always remember Adam West as.
Well, there's, the younger crowd, wants their own, that they can latch onto. Mm-hmm. And I think, of course, they want something different.
Yeah.
So it becomes, the originals like this campy thing, ours is going to be, that we're going to embrace is the dark.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of,
it works.
There's a place for both.
Yeah.
There's definitely a place for both. I'm with you, because I have an emotional attachment, because of my childhood and how important that show was to me, as a kid. I can definitely see where I'm gravitating towards that.
Yeah.
But for other generations that are younger than me, I can also see why they want to reject that and want to embrace something that seems to be more of a stamp of their generation.
Yeah.
So it's not that one's better than the other or anything like that. It's just, people want something to, that they can embrace so they can call it their own.
Yeah.
That's part that, it's really weird to admit.
Yeah.
But that's also part of art.
Yeah.
Art is interpretation.
Yeah, and I think
it's not about the actual piece of art. It's about what it makes you. It spurs you on to think.
Yeah,
what I mean.
And what's interesting from my perspective is, while this may have a special place, this TV show in your heart, because you were around back then. Like I said, I did not come into the world until 1971, but yet, after, as a child, seeing these old episodes, something about, that show resonated with me. So I guess my point I'm making is you don't necessarily have to even be from that time period to appreciate that show for what it was. And that's the beauty of it, that it could speak to somebody that was around back then or somebody that came a few years later. People are still like just discovering this Batman TV series. Young teenage kids are checking it out on YouTube. So again, I think that shows you the value that a show like this has all these years later.
Well, those people that do that, that are from the younger generation, that, gravitate towards something like that, it really, for me, I can completely relate to that type of human being, simply because that's exactly, I went through something similar in what I was embracing, which during my younger years, which was embracing black and white. Mm-hmm. Anything in black and white I wanted to see. Even if it wasn't very good, I just gravitated towards stuff that was in black and white, and that's me basically doing the same thing, embracing something from a previous generation with embracing its nostalgia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's what a younger generation does when they're gravitating towards the Batman TV show. They're gravitating it for the exact same reason, embracing it for the nostalgia.
Yeah, and also a couple final notes on Adam West here. I was reading that the TV show's producer, William Dozier, he originally cast Adam West in the role of Batman after he saw him, of all places, on a Nestle Quick TV ad.
Yeah.
that's something else I got to go back and and look at and see if I can find it. But and then I think this is the ultimate tribute to Adam West, that on June 15th, 2007, like a week after he died, Los Angeles City Hall projected the image of the bat sign on City Hall as a tribute to Adam West.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is just the ultimate.
That is just so cool.
Yeah. I read that.
In fact, I kind of remember that. I didn't pay that much attention to it, but I think I kind of remember, that they did that. I think I saw pictures of it.
Yeah, on the news or something. And I thought, that just shows you not just Adam West, Adam West specifically, but how many people love Batman, and again, how many people remember him as Batman. And so I think that was a great, lovely tribute. And a few final notes I think we need to kind of mention here before we wrap it up. I was reading that before the TV series ever aired on television, it received the lowest ratings from a test audience. That's where they'll kind of bring an audience and kind of play the show and get kind of feedback. And I guess at the time, nobody thought they liked the show, but once it aired, they saw that it was really popular, and it received the lowest rating from any test audience in the history of ABC, which again is just kind of makes you think. And
well, what do the experts know?
Yeah.
It's so funny because I try to listen. There are
experts or whatever. Yeah.
Experts. But when you're talking about trying to put your thumb on what the audience is going to
gravitate
to, it's an unpredictable.
Yeah.
And you have, it's just like when you write a song, when you're a songwriter.
You just don't know.
You have no idea if that particular song is going to be just another one that just goes,
unnoticed,
right straight to the trash can, or whether it's going to be a massive hit. You have no idea. There's no way anyone is ever going to sit down and say, I'm going to write a major hit.
You just
know what I mean?
Don't know, yeah.
It's an unpredictable. Just like that's unpredictable, you can't predict what an audience is going to gravitate towards.
No.
It's an unpredictable, but yet you always have experts trying to predict the unpredictable. It's then again, I'm a big sports fan. I watch all the experts trying to predict who's going to win this game and who's going to blah blah blah, or and when all is said and done, and you go back, the experts don't know doodly squat.
That's so true.
They're trying to predict the unpredictable. Yeah. And so that's just the interesting thing about I guess these people that do reviews on movies and stuff like that, because they're supposed to be the predictors. If they like the movie, then everybody should like the movie. You know what I mean? Yeah. The bottom line is nobody can predict what an audience is going to like or not like.
Yeah. They try to, but they can't. And just kind of to really make the point of how popular this TV show was. Here's an interesting fact I came across. The popularity of a TV series saved the failing Batman comic book that was just about to be canceled because of slumping sales. From the minute the TV series first aired, the popularity of a Batman comic book increased in sales. It was the TV series that helped give the Batman comic book a real boost in sales and really gave the comic book a new life.
Well, I think there was a discovery for all the people making the show and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, I'm sure it spurred them on thinking about merchandising and doing all these other things so they can capitalize on it. Because if it'll have that effect on the comic,
think what else it'll affect? Yeah.
Yes, let's just think what else we can capitalize on too because of the popularity. And a lot of people just because there's so many years have gone by, but that show was
phenomenal.
It was a phenomenon. It was a super massive popularity, just like Beatlemania. And a lot of people have forgotten about Beatlemania, but at that same time, there was just this massive mania that was going on for the Beatles, and that was the popularity of the Batman TV show was just like that. Yeah,
it's interesting that I can't remember how many of these episodes we've done where the Beatles have come up, and I mean when talking about pop culture, they're one thing. They're one band that always comes up, the Beatles, and that's what I was reading about the Batman craze at the time. It was a kind of the biggest craze since Beatlemania that had existed at that time. And we're talking about how the TV show was kind of campy, and if you look at the show now, every time I see an episode, I still love it just as much. It does kind of look dated. You can kind of say, okay, this must have been a show from back in the 60s, but it somehow it still works. And a couple interesting things too I learned about the TV show. Now, one of my favorite characters in the TV show was Alfred the Butler. I had not known this, but I recently learned Alfred the Butler had been killed off in the comic book 18 months before the TV series ever aired, and he was brought back to life for the show because of excess of the TV series. Alfred was also brought back to life in the comic book as well. Alan Napier, who played the role of Alfred the Butler in the TV series, never heard of the character of Batman prior to being cast on the Batman TV series. Can you believe that?
He just had his agent called, hey, I got a gig for you.
Yeah, basically that's what it said. And he first didn't want to do it. Then when he heard how much he might get paid, he said, okay, I think I'll take the role. But it's interesting to find out that the character of Alfred had been killed off in the comic book before the TV series ever aired. And yet, he was such an important character on the show. And he was always coming in the room. He was always involved with what was going on with Batman and Robin and Bruce Wayne. And I used to love it, but to find out that because of what he was able to do with that role, they actually brought that character back to life in the comic book. I mean, how many times can you say that's been done?
Well, you got to keep the audience happy, but it's just, him, I just wonder about all of these, villains, nobody today knows who Cesar Romero
Oh, I do. He was my Joker, yeah.
Burgess Meredith, the guy that played the Penguin went on to play the boxing coach for Rocky in the first Rocky.
You know who? He also played.
Frank Gorshin. Nobody knows who he is. Nobody knows who Julie Newmar is nowadays.
Yeah.
The only ones that people remember are Vincent Price.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
He played, but his name has lasted, all these years where people still know, but there's just so many huge, Roddy McDowell, huge, Milton Berle.
Oh, yeah.
Just like all of these, like massively popular. I just wonder, was it their agent? They called him, hey, I got a gig for you. Or was it the actors that were telling their agent, hey, talk to the Batman people. I'd really like to be on that show. That's one of those question marks that I have myself is it one or is it the other?
I think it's a combination.
It's just kind of because there's so many huge names. Yeah, they're forgotten nowadays.
Yeah.
But back in those days, these were like major figures in the business.
Oh yeah, well I can answer some of those questions. I think it was a combination of both actually. Now, what else I learned is that Mickey Rooney, of all people, turned down the role of the Penguin. Just think of, can you imagine Mickey Rooney as a Penguin? I kind of can. But it ended up being given to Burgess Meredith, as you said, and many people may know him now from the last thing he did before he died. He played the role of Jack Lemmon's father in Grumpy Old Men. That was him. And what's interesting, I was reading about Burgess Meredith, is that prior to accepting the role of the Penguin, he had not smoked a cigarette, if you can believe it, in 20 years. Now, that's one of the trademark things that Penguin does. He usually has a cigarette in a holder, and because he had not smoked so long, and the cigarette, I guess, would irritate his throat, so that's why he started to do that thing where the Penguin would go, quack, quack, quack. That became, kind of the Penguin's trademark. And you mentioning, other people that might have been interested in the role. It said Frank Sinatra was a huge Batman fan, and he voiced an interest in playing the role of a Joker. Again, that's another one. They eventually gave a role to Cesar Romero, but I don't know. I can't imagine really Frank Sinatra getting up, kind of made up as a Joker, but that would have been a cool thing if he got the role.
Well, I think the Joker goes at the top of the list as far as the
characters,
most popular of all of the villains.
Yeah.
And Cesar Romero had a long career, very hugely successful career. Well before
the Joker,
became that character. He was in a lot of hugely successful, major money-making movies back in the 40s.
Yeah, I came across some clips of him, like obviously out of his makeup, but and just looked very unique. And in fact, that was one of the things is initially they didn't know about giving him a role because he had this like trademark mustache he was known for. And he told him, no, I'm not shaving that off. But they were able to work around that because he just put the makeup on, over his mustache, and they were able to kind of make it work. But what's interesting, I was reading about Cesar Romero. I totally agree. He's my favorite Batman villain. I think Cesar Romero is a huge part of a reason why. Because, again, that was my Joker. That was the first kind of Joker I'd ever seen. And what's kind of interesting about his Joker is I was reading that he had never seen he'd never seen what the Joker looked like. Really, he kind of he came up with that kind of psychotic, crazy laugh that he became known for. Doing the Joker, and that's what people loved about that character. He totally kind of created the character in his kind of vision, and I think probably the only other Joker that comes to mind maybe would be Jack Lemmon in the Batman movie with Michael Keaton. He's probably the most like Cesar Romero, but I got to give it to Cesar Romero. He is original, so I got to give it to him. When I think of the Joker, that's what I think of.
Well, every other Joker that followed him, what was the number one priority? The laugh.
Yeah, the laugh.
The laugh is what Cesar Romero created. That all the other Jokers that followed also, embraced the laugh as part of how they created their version of that character.
Yeah, the latest guy to play the Joker.
A stamp that was all started by Cesar Romero.
Yeah, because the latest guy to play the Joker is Joaquin Phoenix, and he does a great job. He won an Oscar for it, as he should, but kind of his take, like if you've seen that Joker movie, it's much more of a darker take. Like what I liked about Cesar Romero is he was not so much of a psychotic, obviously on the TV show. It was more of a playful kind of laugh, friendly laugh, and you couldn't help but like the Joker, so I think they're taking the Joker even in a darker place, but that's good too, because it kind of explains, okay, how did this guy, start dressing up like a clown, and you get kind of a story behind that. So that is kind of, and again, in doing a TV show, there's often things I was reading about that you would never think of. I think this is what we're going to wrap it up with, because I think you'll get a kick out of this. There was a huge controversy about both Adam West and Bert Ward's bulge in the crotch. Adam West once said that the actress Julie Newmar, who played Catwoman, caused strange stirrings in his utility belt. I don't know if you get his little joke there, but yeah. And he admitted and then Bert Ward admitted too that Catwoman's assistant, Pussycat, played by actress Leslie Gore, would rub up against him and cause him a great deal of intense male feelings.
Well, Leslie Gore was a hugely popular singer, back in the 60s, so, that... as a kid, I just thought that Julie Newmar was one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen. So, guys are going to be, guys are going to be guys.
I thought this would be a
beautiful woman.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, I thought this.
You don't have all the control you'd like to have.
And I thought this would be a fun place to end the show, because I was also reading as a result of this that in producing the show and filming it, one thing that became a huge kind of thing that they had to deal with was kind of, let's just say, their manhood. Like, if you look at Bert Ward, the little kind of tiny, tight tights or shorts or whatever you want to call them, they said there were sometimes they had to make sure it wasn't hanging out, and it's all got started because Adam West tried to shove some stuff down there to make it bigger, and it got to a point where they wanted to actually have Bert Ward take some kind of medication that during the film would make him look smaller, and he didn't really want to go that route. But I'm amazed that back then that something like that would be such an issue. You know what I mean?
Who knows? There was a whole thing about that with bands back in the 80s.
Yeah.
I remember Journey did a photo shoot where they all stuffed something down their pants.
Yeah.
To enhance.
There you go, enhance. That's the word.
That whole thing, and I remember there was a big hoopla about that. But I guess they had somebody that preceded them in making something like that popular.
Yeah, who knew?
Then then again, with the '60s was the decade of the sexual revolution.
Yeah, there you go.
Things were being looked at, differently in the '60s than in the '50s. Very, very stark difference between the '50s and the '60s.
Yeah, and we got a lot of exciting stuff coming up. So we enjoyed talking about Batman today. About 2 weeks from now, we'll be posting our 90 Years of Frankenstein episode, and that's talking specifically about the 1931 film Frankenstein. That was a lot of fun to do, and we did this one today. And then next time, about 2 weeks from now, Gar, we're going to be doing our episode, and this was kind of your choice. I think it's a fun choice you made, Young Frankenstein. And
oh my gosh, is an hour long enough for that?
Well, we'll see. We may have to do 2 episodes. We will see. But eventually we're talking also about doing an episode on, if you can believe it's 50th anniversary of John Lennon's Imagine, and 55 years of Star Trek. So that's what we have coming up in the next couple episodes.
I am so excited. I can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing about doing Batman today. I thought I had an idea what we were going to talk about. And once I started doing the research, I came across all this fun stuff that I never even knew about. And, something as simple as, wow, I didn't know the Who covered the Batman theme. How cool is that?
Hey, the Batman theme rocks.
Yeah, it does. Well, Gar Borras, thanks for doing this, and I'll be talking to you again about 2 weeks from now. You take care, my friend.
You too, man. This is a pleasure.
Always. Thanks. Take care. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.